Right, hello everybody, this is Harry J. Martin and welcome back to BeamNG.drive. Now in today's video, we're going to be doing something slightly different. We're not going to be doing any scenarios. We are actually going to be checking out a vehicle mod, and if you couldn't already have inferred, I am actually driving it. Yes, this is not a stock BeamNG vehicle. It is in fact the Lancia Delta Integrale. Now, I mean, it's quite an iconic car, this one. It's probably Lancia's most famous car. I mean, some people might not have even heard of Lancia, but they probably will have seen this car, and you look at it and think, well, I've seen that before. Even if they don't know what it's called or anything about it, they'll probably be able to recognise it from anything else. Now, the mod in question is very, very well done. I must commend it. Some BeamNG vehicle mods are better than others, much like any BeamNG scenario pack mod. You know, some are better than others. And you could tell with this one that it's a very well done mod. Usually in BeamNG, if you get a well done vehicle mod, it will crash well, it will be well detailed, and it will be, for the most part, what it's aiming to be. Explain that a little bit. Some cars are obviously just mods, and you know, it's from the author's imagination. You know, they might have just made this vehicle up for a specific purpose or whatever, but this one is actually copying a real life car. Lancia is a real motor company, maybe not a very successful one, but they do exist anyway. And the Integrale or Delta was actually a car they produced, and I have just crashed it. Wow. Now, I can't actually tell you very much about the real life car this thing represents. However, I can tell you that it went through 3 different generations. The first one beginning, and another crash. Wow, okay. I'll let you have a quick look at that crash before I continue. As you can see, it crashes very well. It's a well done mod. It looks realistic. I mean, that looks pretty like, you know, what you'd expect from crashing into a tree at 35 miles per hour. It makes sense, that. Yeah, that's a pass. As I was saying, I can realistically tell you about 3 things about this car. It was released in 3 different generations, the first one beginning in 1979, I believe, and continuing right up until 2014 when it was discontinued. I couldn't tell you exactly what kind of year or generation or variant this actual mod represents. I doubt it's the 2014 version, and I doubt it's the 79 version. I'd say it's probably late 80s. I can't be sure, I might be completely wrong here, but that's my kind of guess from a very amateur perspective on cars. If you want to exactly find out, I'm sure you could do a nice little Google search and that'd let you know. Although that was a real clean kind of, I don't really know what to describe that move as, but it was clean nonetheless. But anyway, but as I was saying, in terms of the actual car in real life, I believe it was offered with 2- and 4-wheel drive, and at least for some part of its lifetime, it came with a 4-cylinder boxer engine. And that's pretty much my knowledge on this car exhausted. So why don't we go and check out a different variant of it before I run out of things to say. Right then, the Lancia Delta probably made a name for itself in the rally department, and yes, that is what I'm driving now. As I say, this mod is very well done, so I'm assuming this is pretty much what the Lancia Delta rally car looked like. And if you search it up, yeah, it did look like this. It was a Martini Racing livery for the most part, and I'm not sure what years it was, you know, what seasons and what years it represented Lancia as a rally team. I'm not even sure if Lancia still rally, but this is the rally version, and we're getting up some decent speed here, so why don't we go for a nice little crash right on the roof there. And obviously this version has a roll cage, so the actual shape of the car is not really being disrupted too much. If we can flip this thing over, perhaps we'll get a better look at it. There we go. And well, yeah, it's crashed very well. I don't really know what else I'd expect from a kind of flying through the air for 30 feet and then landing on the roof, but I'd say this thing looks, you know, it looks pretty much how it should after a crash like that. And yes, I should point out, it probably didn't say BeamNG.drive on the side of the actual rally car, but, you know, you get the idea. This thing is a rally car, so I think we should probably go and find some kind of dirt road to drive it on. And I'm on the Italy map, partly because Lancia is an Italian company, and partly because it has plenty of different kind of terrains to drive. Oh dear. Yeah, we've took the front wheel off there. And you can even see it has Brembo brake calipers. Like, what more detail can you want from a mod? Like, realistically. Like, you don't go and look at the brake calipers, but they are Brembo, and they are modelled in quite the detail, I must say. And that is a sign of a good mod, if you ask me, you know, that level of detail. And while we're at detail, I should probably point out the interior. I'm going to stop here before I crash in, ruin it for you all. Yeah, you can see, this thing is an extremely well detailed interior. Now, obviously this is for the rally variant. I don't know how this kind of varies throughout the different specs of the car. I'm not sure what's going on the kind of passenger side there on the dashboard. I'm assuming that might be something to do with vintage rallying. That looks like quite old technology. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I'm sure some, you know, expert on this subject could tell me. But yeah, I'm assuming some rally device, I don't know, for the co-driver perhaps. Or Lancia offered very, very detailed and very complex interiors in the 1980s, which seems unlikely, I have to say. But you've got everything you'd expect. We've got working dials. If I clutch in and rev, you can see the rev counter there, and the little orange light as it's telling me to, well, theoretically shift gear, but as we're in neutral, that's not really helpful. It's just kind of warning us, I suppose. But yeah, you can really see the detail here, and if I accelerate, you can see the speedo works as well. That's in kilometers per hour, which I'm assuming is correct for Italy, actually. Yeah, kilometers per hour, not on the UK roads, but most of Europe is using kilometers per hour, so that's pretty damn correct. Now, I'm not sure what the other dials are. I assume that's oil temperature in the middle there. I think the one above, yeah, that's probably a boost gauge, because that only seems to activate when we get up into the high RPMs, which is obviously when the turbo is, well, open and working, active, etc, etc. I'm also assuming if we put the lights on, yes, there we go, the gauges will light up, and I guess there'd probably be a little indicator for high beam somewhere, but anyway. The only one little complaint I could say I have is the fact that the roll cage clips through the air vent there, but it's not even in a fashion where it looks wrong. It looks like it could have been engineered in that sense. Right then, this thing being the rally version, it only makes sense to take it into the dirt and see how we do along here. And I am no professional rally driver, I must put that out there. But I can say this thing does its job fairly well on the dirt. I don't know how this thing was actually geared, you know, as the real vehicle, but I must say it gets bogged down very easy. I'm sure if obviously you were shifting the gears yourself, that wouldn't be a problem. But with these ratios, the automatic arcade shifting has a little bit of trouble keeping it in the right gear, especially between first and second. It never seems to be able to make its mind up, so yeah, I should point that out. I wouldn't say that's at fault of the mod. That's not really something that can be controlled. I must say, if these are the, you know, these are the realistic gear ratios. What the hell happened there? Okay, we're being eaten by the tree, I suppose. So yeah, like I was saying, the arcade shifting doesn't really get along with these gear ratios too well. However, if that is how this vehicle was geared in real life, then I have no grumbles. It's not, you know, it's not the author's fault that the game can't seem to deal with this transmission. It's just how it is. That'd be the only real grumble I have for this mod, to be honest, how it's geared. If that's how it was geared in real life, like I said, that's absolutely fine. It's just in BeamNG, you know, it has a little bit of issues, that's all I'm really saying here. However, that was the dirt road complete, I'd say, if you would agree, that did perfectly fine through there. I'd see no issue with how that handled there. I might not have been, you know, pedal to the metal quite, but, you know, it got round in a decent time, I'm assuming, through there. So, yeah, quite impressive, really, for the rally version. It does its job. Right then, I wanted to showcase kind of all the variants of this mod. So here we have them. There is a fifth, but for the purposes of this, which as you can probably tell is going to be a drag race, the fifth vehicle is essentially the exact same performance-wise as the rally version, which we've already driven, so I felt no need to really include it in the drag race. So on the left we have the sport version, which has obviously some different wheels on it, and if you look closely it also has a pair of dice hanging from the rear view mirror, which instantly makes you think fast, apparently. Anyway, to the right of that we have the rally version, which we've already driven. And to the right of that, yet again, we have the stripped out version, which is, well, it's a stripped out version. As you can see, it's missing a few panels here and there. And I think I'm going to back that as my winner here. I'd like to think that the loss of weight would probably boost this thing to the win, but only time will tell, so we'll see. And to the right of that we have the street version, which we've already driven. I don't really know what else to say about that one, but yeah, there you have it. So there are 4 competitors, so place your bets who you think's going to win. Right then, in 3, 2, 1, let's go. Right then, so it looks like if we tab across, here we go. So yes, the stripped out version, well, was in the lead. Now it's getting mugged. Yeah, the sport version is really holding its own here. Closely followed by, has that thing run out of gears? I can hear it bouncing off the red line. I'm not sure. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be the sport version which is going to take the win, followed closely by the rally version and then the sport version. There we have it. Anyway, the sport version was the fastest. Right then, you join me at Hirochi Raceway. Following the drag race, we figured out that the sports version was the fastest in the straight line. However, I wanted to see how things were on the track. So here I have the 5th version of the vehicle that I mentioned earlier, and yes, it is the Stig variant. As you can see at the wheel there, we have Stig himself, ready to, I don't know, finesse this track, I suppose. So let's get going here. I should point out I'm not entirely familiar with this circuit, although I should be able to get us around here no problem. I'm going to take it a little bit easier than I usually would. Well, on a track that I actually knew anyway. However, thus far we seem to be doing okay, and I've only just noticed the number plate. I'm sure you lot have all noticed that much before I did, but what is that? BO R86 420. Of course it has 420 on there. Why would it not? Because when you're given a number plate and numbers, why else would you not put 420 on there? I don't know, first third of this lap, we're doing okay so far. We're getting into the tighter corners now. I've got to get on the brakes a little bit, locking them up there. That wasn't exactly professional driving. And yeah, once again, as I mentioned earlier, we are having a little bit of issue with the transmission. Still can't decide whether it wants to be in first or second for most of the time. Although once you get up into third, you're usually okay. And yes, I haven't failed to notice we're kind of badly overheating here. I suppose that's actually quite accurate owing to the fact that this is an Italian hatchback from the 80s, and you know it's going to overheat. You know, I mean, I guess you could point out the fact that that's an issue with this mod, that it overheats, but realistically, driving a car that's not intended for the track this hard around a track, it is probably going to lead to overheating. So actually I'm going to commend that as an interesting part to this mod, because, well, it just makes sense really. And yes, the engine has just completely died on us there, but we got the lap in, and I think, yeah, we did okay around there, especially with Stig at the wheel. I'm sure he definitely helps us get around there, no problem. Right then, for the final part of today's video, I really wanted to just see how this thing actually crashes. So what better place to do that than grid map? We're going to floor it from the start here, from the spawn, right into the kind of boundary wall that separates the, well, the inside from the outside of grid map, I guess is how you describe it. I guess we're going to be hitting this at probably about 115 miles per hour. I'm going to freeze physics, get a slightly better camera angle on this. Where are we going to hit? Probably, oh, a bit further over that way. So yeah, we're going to be hitting this thing probably about 115 miles per hour, and here we have it. Yeah, that seems pretty, you know, what you'd expect. As I mentioned earlier, well done mods tend to crash well. As you can see, we've got a little bit of clipping going on at the front there. I'm not sure what that front bumper's doing. It's just kind of on a bit of a mad one. But aside from that and the floating exhaust, I don't, what's going on with that? I don't really know. But yeah, aside from that, that's a pretty damn good crash if you ask me. And we're going to be going for the head-on collision, so if I unfreeze physics here, hopefully I've done this correctly and they're going to line up quite well. Yep, I think that's looking quite good there, and I think this is going to be a pretty big crash here. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's pretty realistic there. We're going to speed things back up a little bit. And as you can see, the vehicles are stuck together somewhat, but other than that, I think that was a pretty reasonable crash. Yeah, pretty impressive actually. Right then, I think that will do for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please do consider dropping a like and perhaps a subscribe. And I shall see you all in the next video you watch, provided it's one of mine. Goodbye. That's going to be a nice crash. Oh yes, beautiful.